Loud. Okay. Let me know when you're ready to let people in.
Just a minute, I have one thing I need.
Like we have a good show up. That's great.
Yeah, there's some friend will come in. Just a minute.
Is it
Okay.
Asa Prosar? Is that? I don't know that one.
Yeah, I can share my presentation. Just a minute. Just to
Okay.
be in just a minute. Where is the lecture? Okay, here it is. Okay, so tell me when I can start.
Okay, 1 second. I'm just gonna let everybody into the meeting, okay? I'm just gonna admit there's 18 people, so they'll start popping in. Hey, thank you for your patience, everyone. Welcome to our SINA event with Dr. Raed Mualem. I'm going to do a quick introduction, Dr. Mualem, and then let you take over, okay? Anybody who is concerned, I'm recording the meeting because I have a lot of requests from people who would like to see the meeting but who couldn't attend this time frame. So if you don't want to be on screen, then just take off your camera, turn off your camera. Okay, so Dr. Mualem is a passionate advocate for peace and equal access to higher education, with a special emphasis on integrating health and education to improve social well-being. Raised in an Arab Christian family in Galilee, Israel, he lives by the motto, "Together we can make a difference." Dr. Mualem holds a BS in biology, and he has a law degree as well as advanced degrees in science, educational leadership, and health administration, and a PhD in life sciences. He has worked in France and expanded his biochemistry piece and has participated in, the U.S. State Department's International Leadership Program. So he's currently on faculty at the Orem Academic College or University College, yes, and serves on the board of GHETR Research at Al Zaytona University in the Palestinian Authority. The lecture today is titled Echo-Neurobiology and Brain Development in Children, Key Influences and Educational Interventions. So, just gonna fix my screen. I will continue to let people in, and I'll try to monitor the chat as best I can during the talk. Are you okay if we interrupt for questions?
Yeah, that's fine, definitely.
Okay, great. Perfect. Well, welcome to Bridgewater State.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Margaret, for this outstanding welcome. And it's my pleasure to be with you guys and trying to share with you our research with my colleague from Oranim Academic College at Israel. And it's focused on what we call the echo-neurobiology and brain development in children. And in fact, this research is come under special topics in Frontier Public Health, a journal, well-known journal, where with our colleague Leon from Harvard Medical School, we present together what all about how our brain is working. And this is really a very, very interesting aspect because in a world where the children are growing up in a midst of constant change and there's all the time complex challenges, so the understanding of how their brain develop has never been more crucial. And that's why bring here together some of our insight from my group research in Uranim, as well as from Harvard and other international, to understanding how our work is, how our brain is working. So we are living, in fact, in what we call in a VUCA, and the word today, which describe as a VUCA, that mean volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And this concept, in fact, highlight that we are living in a rapid change world, and where many factors are unpredictable, interconnected, and open to multiple interpretation. So this awareness can help us to recognize the adaptability needed in education and in health field, especially concerning the brain development. And that's what all about our research. And I want to go first to realize and to underline that the evolution of the human brain is a very fascinating subject. If we look to the early hominid, they has a small brain. Through the Homo erectus, there is increase in the volume of the brain till the modern humans, the Homo sapiens, which they have the large frontal cortex, and we can understanding that the progression and the development in the brain are unique. And in our article, we present that if we look in the last 4 million years, we can see a rapid increase in the volume of the brain. And many researchers in the world agree that 2 million years ago, the Homo erectus who create the fire, and we start to cook. And this is what the major impact in our development of the brain, as well as the social engagement. So this two factor has a major role in the developing our brain, and mainly not in the volume, because the elephant has a volume of brain 4 kilogram, while I have 1.5 kilogram. The difference is about the number of neurons, how many neurons we have in our brain. Neurons are the small cells that build our body. In the nervous system, we call that neuron. We'll see in a minute a video about that. And we can see here really, as we present in one of the article, what make us unique in the brain is the frontal lobe and the cortex. We are built with about 86 billion neuron in our brain. If we take the gorilla, she has just 30 billion. And but the gorilla with the 30 billion need to eat 8 hours a day. We have 3-time folder. We don't eat 8 hours a day. So the question here, why? And the answer is because the fire, the cooking. We cook the food, and that's why we utilize the food much better. And that's why it's really lead to increase in the volume of the brain. And just we come to the world with all our organ. Everything is built, but the brain, we come to the world and we built this organ. So the brain, unlike other organ, we build that during our life. And the brain is 2% of our body mass, but it need consume about 25% of our body energy. And this is really an amazing. And that's why we need to go for that and see what happened. And if we go to what we see in the brain, I want to focus not in the area, all the area of the brain. We today talk about the connection between different area in the brain, but in general, I want to focus in what we call the frontal lobe, who make us a human being, responsible about the decision-making, reasoning, the controlling behavior, and what we call the emotional brain, the limbic system, and the hippocampus, which is related to the memory, emotion, and behavior. And this is the two areas where I really want to focus. And the brain stem, it's really focusing in the basic physiological need, breathing, blood pressure. But in my lecture, I'm going to focus in these two main two areas, which we refer in our article. Well, in fact, one of the concepts that I want to share with you, which is related to the brain, is how we built our brain. We call, in fact, how we built the architecture of the brain. So the brain architectures is something really very interesting, and we built that in very strategic way. And in early childhood, the brain development is rapidly. The forming each second, as Harvard Medical School mentioned, Child Development Center, about 1 million new connection. And the experiences during this period are essential as the brain reinforce frequently and use the connection, and they keep it. And all area that we don't use, we in fact make as pruning. And this is the process what we called the process of proliferation and the pruning. We built connection and we pruning. So the brain has a title called use it or lose it. That's why we need to all the time stimulate our brain. Otherwise, if we lose it, we're going to get Alzheimer. So let's see the small video about how we built that with some explanation.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
So this is exactly what we called about the foundation, and it is so important, and the early childhood is so critical period in our life because we're building the basis. Now, in addition to that, we need to understanding the experiences and the simulation during our life, which we're going to focus. It developed what we call the plasticity of the brain, the experience dependent, and the long-term potentiation, and the long-term depression is really dependent what happened during our life, which kind of experiences, and in the early childhood is so important. Now, as scientists, what we measure in the brain, as we have the EKG for the heart, we have the EEG for the brain. We measure the physical and the chemical in the brain. So we, as a scientist, measure the waves, and they are measure the 5 waves. The gamma wave, it's for solving problem, when we think, when we solve a problem. Beta wave, when we are busy. Alpha wave, when we are brisk and reflective. Theta wave, when drowsiness. And delta wave, when we are sleeping, which is so important. So we're measuring which kind of waves and what is the chemistry between the neurons that we saw that they communicate together, electricity and chemistry. So the brain is about physics and chemistry, in fact. In other article, we present also what happened to this plasticity, and we see the critical time life, and we see in early childhood, we built about 1 million connection, while when we go with the time, with the age, the plasticity of the brain is degrees. We keep having plasticity, but that I can tell you a secret. I just last day had a meeting with my mom. It's 92 age, 3 hours. I tried to convince her to make the harvest of the olive trees after the first rain. I did not succeed to convince her. I can understand that. It seemed to be when we grow up and with the age, it's so challenging to change our thought, our way of thinking. And that's why sometimes our kids, they told me, God, Dad, you are old-fashioned. I think I can start to understand. Well, in fact, that child has a brain plasticity much more than us. Well, the United Nations developed what we call the Sustainable Development Goals, and one of them is the education and the right for education. For me, I'm working now in a law article called The Right for a Right Education. It's not just for education, the right for a right education. And we learn from many research in the world, the cost-benefit concept. If we invest $1 in early childhood, we can earn and get $16 for the community. But if we invest $1 in the age 21, we can get just $4. So if I am a minister of education, 80% of my budget, I will put it in early childhood. This is the foundation of sustainable and development community, sustainable country. That's why early childhood is so important. So before I'm going deeply to the 6 factors which really impact our life, help us to become a better grandfather, grandmother, a better family, a better mother, a better teacher. I want to present what we present in our article, that when we look to the brain, usually it was a very fascinating book. It's called The Fast Brain and the Slow Brain, and where they present, in fact, in the fast brain, it's what we call the emotional brain. It is the amygdala and the hippocampus, which is the fast brain is talking, it is autonomous brain, emotional mind. They don't need to ask a permission. It's immediately. And the prefrontal cortex, which make us unique human being, what we call the slow brain. Why? Because it's reasonable, it's analytical brain, it's reflective, it's algorithm, it's make decision. In our article, we offering something new, not just a fast brain and slow brain. We need to educate and help the kid to develop what we call the optimized brain connectivity, where in fact it's a balance that they can know to manage and control, where the prefrontal cortex, the slow brain, can control the fast brain. Give you an example. If I write a first idea for a story, it's come emotionally. It comes from the fast brain. But if I want to write this story, I need to learn the grammar and vocabulary and spelling. And then I need really to use the prefrontal cortex. But if I'm really to write and reading aloud, a story with a beginning, middle, and end with emotional, seem to be, I need the optimized brain. I will implement that with the 6 factors that I'm going to present now, and how much important as a grandmother, grandfather, as educators. So in our concept, in the econeurobiology, we talk about the ecology, the environment, and we identified 6 major factors which really significantly impact the brain development. So I'm going to take one by one, presenting what we made in our research group, the econeurobiology in Oranim Academic College, and trying to present really what we can learn from this, really the 6 factors. So in fact, let's start with the first one. Nutrient environment. I grew up in a Christian family. My mom teach me very important thing. In fact, the major thing, love and forgiveness. And we today learn more and more the powerful of love. Love is so vital for helping the kids to develop their brain. Our brain cannot be developed without a positive and supportive environment. Love and love and love. Maybe that love and forgiveness, the title of Christianity. And I really respect what I studied from my mom. And really, love is meaning a lot for the brain, for building neural network. It's very important for the content to serve and return. It's very important to reduce the stress where we are living. In fact, love produce in the brain the chemistry, the positive chemistry, what we called the love hormones, the endorphin and neurotransmitter. When you hug your son, you support him. When you talk with your children, your daughter, and trying to absorb and advise them, you really help them to produce oxytocin and endorphin, and it is so important for developing their network in the brain. And it's important because they play a crucial role in social bonding, in trust, in empathy, and we can develop that. So we need the love for children development. Children without love cannot be development. I am from the Middle East. Think about what happened to the children both in Israel and Palestine. How much are suffering, how much love they need, how much really stress can be damage the brain. And I will show you stress hormone like cortisol. Really, its response when we have stress, but for prolonged high level can lead to anxiety, fatigue, brain disorder, and many post-traumatic syndrome. So the impact of trauma that we are living here in the Middle East is so critical, so really damaging for many child, Israeli as Palestinian kids. And really, it can really change the life of the kid. The question, what does stress make the brain? In fact, many articles talk about that, including the Center of the Development Child in Harvard University. If we look to the child with a love environment, with a nutrient environment, with love, the connection between the neurons became much more strong. And the typical neuron mainly became connection. They can create connection. But when they are living in stress, in toxic stress, like fear, politic, war, it damage the neuron. And if it damage the neuron, and mainly in the area where we make decision, then we have a serious problem. So toxic stress impacts the development process that form the brain structures. And high stress level can disrupt the prefrontal cortex, who control the behavior, who make the decision. And that's why love is so important. In our article, we talk about the model, which we called it the top-down model. That meaning with a normal kid, child who grow with love and forgiveness, with support environment, their prefrontal cortex develop very strong. So it have a top-down. The prefrontal cortex control the emotional brain, so he can control their behavior. So it's called the top-down. But when the kids are living in stressful, living in war, living in fear, living in ACE, what we called, without a positive experience, a negative experience, what happened? A prolonged stress lead to sustained prefrontal cortex reduction. In fact, what happened, it will start bottom up. The emotional brain control the frontal lobe, and in fact, the kids became emotional. It brings them to the level what we called fight, flight, or freeze. It's the response, the autonomous, the emotional brain, and their behavior can be aggression, they can be violent. And look to that, what happened to kids who were exposed to what become all the time a toxic stress. The abused children can lead to really change in their brain, in the temporal lobe, also in the frontal, while healthy brain can be developed very good. We measure that with our staff at Uranin. You know, the kids today play with two kinds of games. There are games for good the brain, and there are games which is bad game, like fast shooting games like Fortnite. Kids today are exposed to digitals. And what we discover that if we take children who are playing with Fortnite, this is fast shooting games all the time, shooting, fighting, compared to solitaire games, which is stimulate the brain to think, we see a big difference in concentration and memory. In fact, brain games for a brain, a good games can improve the concentration and memory. But Fortnite games, games with fighting, first shooting game can lead to decrease in concentration and in memory. Not just that, it also can impact the cognitive outcome. And what we see with Fortnite games, first shooting games, aggression games can lead to reduction in 41% of their cognitive outcome. We need to advise our kids. They can use the computer, but for the good reason. They can use their computer by games for brain. And the social media today is really the main enemy for the children. Comparing themselves to the other is it create more cortisol in the brain. It's more toxic stress. We need to develop a filter of the media and the new media because it really can be damaging. The second factor is what we called the nutrition. We are lucky we come from the Holy Land. And you know, if you talk also what people eat in the Mediterranean, they eat a good food. And here we have a really unique experience, what we discover with our kindergarten children. And in one of our article with the group led by Nibal Jadon, what we discover, the first one with the computer science, we did that with Sapir Cohen, also one of my students, and now also another one with Nibal Jadon, also my students. What we discover with that, we offer, you know, kids used to come to the kindergarten and the family prepare for them the food. They can two sides. One, it could be a processed food. We became like American people. You guys eat a lot of processed food. People here like McDonald's cheeseburger. We also we like that a lot. And they can eat what we call the traditional food, the olive oil, the Lebanese, the za'atar, which we call the Mediterranean, and the vegetables. And what we discover, this kid in kindergarten, about 50 to 60 kids, I think, what we discover that when they eat processed food, their ability to solve problem that in measuring the memory decreased by 35%, as well as in concentration. Now, not just in memory and concentration, their mental, when we analyze the statement, how they behave, how they respond, how they follow the instruction, how they disrupt, how they became angry, we discover there's a significant difference. Mediterranean food make them much more happy, much more relaxed, much more interactive. Now, my PhD in physiology, and I know a lot about the digestive system. In our digestive system, they have many bacteria. And also when we measure that, what happened in the brain with the electrophysiology, with Cuba group as well. So we make also with Cuba group, we discover amazing thing. When they eat chocolate, the gamma wave responsible for decision making is shut down. But when we eat olive oil, when they eat Mediterranean food like vegetables, it's like it's the light, they open their brain. So the gamma is in charge of decision making. Alpha, it's with relax and reflect And you see the same thing with alpha. That means when they eat chocolate, it shut down the brain. But when they eat salad, it switch on the brain. So guys, start to eat what people used to eat 2,000 years ago. Go ahead to vegetables, olive oil, vegetables. Now, what happened in the digestive system, microbe need about 30 minutes to duplicate. So when they eat chocolate and cheeseburger, fast food, McDonald's, there is good bacteria and there is bad bacteria. And guess what? The bad bacteria like McDonald's, like we. So their number increased significantly. But the good bacteria, like the Mediterranean food, the vegetables, and everything related to plant, olive oil. And what happened when bad bacteria increase rapidly, they create, like in the right side, what we call inflammation in the digestive system that we call as scientists gut-brain axis. Some of the toxin enter to the blood, increase the immune system. Some of them pass the brain barrier, and then they can impact the brain. Oh my God, it can happen within 1 hour, 2 hours. This is what we discovered with the kindergarten. And what today it's very clear for us. Bad bacteria related to junk food can create inflammation and can impact the brain using what we call gut brain. And there is a vagus nerve, 85% of what we call the serotonin neurotransmitter produced in the digestive system. And that can lead to obesity, depression, anxiety, pain, autism. Oh my gosh. I think we need to advise our kids, to advise them to start to eat and go back to vegetables, to go back to olive oil. You know, I agree with my mom. She told me all the time, you should eat like Jesus, what he used to eat. 2,000 years ago, believe me, there was no cheeseburger and there is no was. So they eat, in fact, very good food, what we call the vegetable food, the Mediterranean food. And this is amazing result of this. So people need to eat vegetables so they can really develop the positive and the good bacteria. The third key factor, we call that the physical activity. And it seemed to be our brain need to move. We need to move. The more we are moved, the more we are educated, the more our brain is active. And it's because movement is so critical to the brain, it develops what we call the BDNF secretion. BDNF is a growth factor. It's increase the plasticity of the brain. It's really help the brain to develop. And here really we have a lot of research in our group. One of them also in Frontier, we discover from kindergarten to the university, when we move 10 minutes before the exam, it's amazing. We have a significant increase, a significant change in memory, in feature detection, in concentration, and just 10-minute walking. It seemed to be 10-minute walking. It's really improved the connectivity in the brain. It's released the BDNF, the growth factor. So more plasticity in the brain, more connection, and not just in memory and in concentration, but all what we call the skills, the lower order skills and the higher order skills. And we see that in all level. And we found that with kids with ADHD, movement before exam, before task, increase their academic performance. So guys, move and move and move. Movement is not just improve the cognition capacity and cognitive capacity. It releases also dopamine, which make us happy. So if you don't feel good, go out and walk. And if you still don't feel good, go for another walk. Believe me, you will feel so much, so good. So walking is so important. And today I'm very concerned about the kids with the new media. They use a lot Facebook, Insta, TikTok, ChatGPT. They don't move. And this is very dangerous. So that's why we need to move. Another research where we did it also with Dr. Rania Faraj with the team, and I think she's here also with Sheer Chance and other team. We discover, and amazing, when we compare different type of activity, and we compare, because a teacher came to us and asked us what happened to the kids when they have a physical activity. They have 1 hour physical activity a day, and then they study science after this physical activity. And they ask the kid, they don't want to study. So in fact, we start to study what happened to the brain with the basic cognition skills, as well with the electrophysiology. So with the resting, what we call basal, when they are rest, the concentration and the recall, and we're talking about different skills, we found they increase when they start to walk 10 minutes. This is what we discovered before. So 10 minutes, they can lead to increase by really a lot, as we discover in all the skills. But then when they do that, if they measure the concentration and the recall after exercise, after physical activity for 30 minutes, we see there is a decrease in the concentration and in the recall. That meaning movement for 10 minutes, it generates the BDNF, it activates the prefrontal cortex and increase their academic performance. Exercise for 30 minutes is good for the health, for the blood system. It seemed to be, if we take kids after a physical activity of 30 minutes, it seems to be they don't like to study science. And the same thing with other skills like knowledge, like understanding, the same direction we found. So, I mean, 10-minute walking stimulate the brain, it's switch on the brain, while physical activity is good for the blood pressure, it's good for the heart. It's not a good time to teach math and science after playing soccer or a football game. It seemed to be the kids are not there, and we start to understanding to read what happened in the chemistry in the brain. Now, and this is very important because it can create a different approach and can change our system schedule in the school. Now, the fourth element is the music. And we believe that music has a big impact in the cognitive development. It changed the neural network. It changed the spatial intelligence. It changed the language. In fact, with our group, and here we led that with also with the Maha and other friends with in the group at Uranim, we found that there is really a significant change if kids study with music and without music. Well, it seemed to be there are two. We in fact study a special kind of music. We called it the symphony. In the Middle East, usually we have traditional music. This time we want to examine what happened to the pupil at the school age pupil, when they listen to symphony, to music they don't know that. They didn't hear about that. And we discover something amazing. You know, kids, when they study math, when they study language, when they study science, and they study that with the music, oh my gosh. And we are talking about Mozart. That's what they call that Mozart effect. There is a significant increase in in cognition, all the aspects of cognition, knowledge, understanding, evaluation, all what we call the lower and higher cognitive skills. So why they don't let the kids study with symphony? Why we don't encourage the kids to listen to symphony? And the same thing we found with the electrophysiology of the brain. We found really there is increasing in alpha wave and gamma wave when they listen to the music. So music is good for the soul. It's increased the neurotransmitter, the dopamine, the oxytocin. And now we are really working in this research in order to get better understanding how different type of music can impact. Now, play music is so important, and mainly in early childhood. We need to encourage the kids to use the music, to listen, to play, everything. It can really create the interconnection between the neuron and the brain. So let your kids really have some dance and have some music and listen music. It can make different in their life. The 5th factor is what people used to forget to do, is simply to sleep. Now today, I'm very concerned. All the article talking about sleep deprivation. Well, sleep is so important for building our brain. We do with sleeping, we do 2 major things. One, we called memory consolidation. We, in fact, convert short-term memory to long-term memory. And we made cleaning our brain, what we call detoxification. We clean our brain. We have glia cells that can clean inside the neurons, the synapse, what we call. So guys, we need to sleep. Now think about teacher who teach kids who did not sleep the time that they need to sleep, and 8 o'clock they want to teach them math. Good luck. I mean, they cannot work. They need to memorize, and changing the short memory to long memory, we do that in the evening. Now, guess what? We need to sleep in dark. And cellular phone can really damage this process, because we need to sleep in dark, because when we are in deep sleep time, our brain releases melatonin, very important hormone for what we call the consolidation process. Is very important for our repairing DNA, and we need to sleep the right hour. Now, in early childhood, they built 1 million neurons, so that's why they need to sleep a lot, because they need to make pruning, what we call to decide which pathway to keep in the brain. And when we grow up, we build less neurons, less connection between the neurons. That's why we need to sleep less hour. Now, most of the kids has problem with sleep. There is a phenomenon today called sleep deprivation. Kids, they don't sleep. Now think about early childhood. We're talking about 9 hours. In high school, it's 8 hours. I ask my students at the high school, just 20% sleep 8 hours. So think about that, what happened to them in the school. Now here also, we share our result from research recently with Salma Haddad and our team, and we discovered really something amazing. We took a high school students, they study what we called, like you and guys in the state, the SAT, we have the matriculation exam, Bagrut, and we study what happened to this high school student when they need to sleep. And some of them, they sleep, usually they can sleep 8 to 10 hours, and they can sleep 4 to 6 hours. It's very often with them. And we really measured what happened to their memory and concentration. And look what happened to them. When they sleep less, the concentration and the memory decrease by 20%. Now, when they try to solve a SAT exam or matriculation exam like the Bagrut in chemistry, oh my gosh, their ability to solve decreased by 35. Now imagine that most of the kids go to the SAT exam or to the Bagrut exam, and before that, all the night they did not sleep. Good luck for them in the exam. So what we learn here, we need to encourage our kids to sleep in the dark, because light can really inhibit the secretion of dopamine, and there is no process what we call the red eyes movement. It's the process where we turn the short memory to the long memory. It's not just cognition, it's also about behavior. Its impact really what we call the mental and the mood. It changed. The kid that did not sleep well has more tension, more depression, more anger, fatigue, and they don't have motivation. So I think one of the major role of the director, the principal of the school, is helping with their family, their mother and father, to convince the kid they simply need to sleep. Sleep is like oxygen to the brain. Sleep is like food to the brain. And they cannot build their brain architecture without sleeping. Now, if we don't sleep all the time, it can really, a lot of research talking about developing Alzheimer. And one of the problems with the Alzheimer is related to the pattern of sleeping during our life. And the last factor, which we called it the brain connectivity, what in fact implementing great person Gardner from the state, the Gardner theory. And the Gardner theory focused that we need to stimulate all the brain. So the more experience the kid has, the more stimulating area in the brain, the more connectivity. If you want to build a cognitive capacity for your brain, stay student all your life. In fact, each 4 years, I study another subject. I stimulate my brain. Stimulating your brain, deal with things that you are not deal with, has experience with things that you don't familiar with. It's create more connectivity. And Gardner talk about the verbal, the logic mathematics, the visual spatial, the musical, the nutrist, the body kinesthetic, and interpersonal and intrapersonal. And what we called also interpersonal, it's the emotional intelligence. So the more experience to the kids, the more they are succeed in building their brain. In fact, the more experience, the more obstacles, the more failure, the more success. Kids need to realize it's okay to fail. It's okay not to answer good. It's okay not to get 100, to get 50. It's okay to get C, not A plus. Because the more experience you has, the more failure you has, the more success you be in your life. The experience and the working with that is so important. So cognitive stimulation, encouraged to develop in the brain, stimulate releasing dopamine. It's not feeling good. It's the neurotransmitter of study. It's really create not just pleasure. It create the satisfaction, the motivation, and the learning process. So yes, we need to stimulate, and that's why we have so many things in this aspect. In addition to that, today, science and technology become so important. In the state, you are leading the world in that, what we call the STEAM with A: science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. Because science and technology, it can provide the pupil the tools and the skills how to think, rather to teach them and what to think. This is the big difference. What we need to make in the school is to provide the pupil the tools, improve their skills to have a critical thinking, freedom of thought, and how to think. Not to teach them what to think. And that STEM can bring that. And here we bring another experience with our team in Israel, with the corona pandemic. And we found that crisis can be great opportunity to transfer the crisis to opportunity. And using STEAM approach, which is adopted from the state, it's really make the science so important to decrease the fear, to create the knowledge. Like you see, to use the art, they create a scientific model of understanding the biology of the mechanism of the corona pandemic. They create prototype. They create diagram, use the mathematics, and build a prototype how they can deal with this challenges. So STEAM is a strategic way to improve the system and help the kids, teach them how to think, not what to think. And definitely studying outside the classroom, walking in the green with the science also is to be outdoor, not just indoor, because the outdoor really can increase the brain connectivity. That's why we come to our team in Oranim in Israel with the model, the eco-neurobiology model, where in this model, in fact, we identify and we're focusing in this 6 factor that we mentioned, which really this ecology can impact what happened in the biology of the brain, what we call the neurobiology, about the functional neurology, to optimize the brain connectivity, to develop the self-resilience, to produce the positive neurotransmitter like oxytocin, dopamine, and decrease the cortisol, the stress hormone, and to optimize the brain connectivity so they can have self-resilience and to eat the good things which can impact which kind of microbe in our digestive that can change the life of the kids. It can make a much healthy child development, develop their critical thinking, have a self-regulation and educational attainment and a self-resilience. And this is what the cognitive and the behavior outcome. This is so important in the VUCA era, where the world facing a major crisis in leadership, political leadership, major crisis in economic, major crisis in what we call the climate change. And that's why we need to be focusing in factors where as educators, as father or mother, as a teacher, as a grandfather, this is the factor, in fact, who really help the kids to build their brain. If we can convince them, if we can work with them, we can help them to build their brain architecture and having the optimized brain and became a really critical thinking people, has the resilience and the self-regulation and be very powerful and creating a civic society with sustainable development. That's why in our model, we recommend a different schedule at the school. We need to make food at the school. You guys, some of your school do that in the state. Here, we bring for them food. We need to do the food with the kids at the school. We need to start with the music, have a fun in early childhood, in elementary school, and then study math and have a playtime as a therapy, and then language. But then music should be one of the pillars in building the brain and having outdoor learning, not just indoor. Explore the nature, developing the concept of the loving pedagogical, to love ourselves, to love our friends, and to love the nature. And also to develop for them the community commitment, the community service, and serving their community to develop the interconnection between the different. So the future of the econeurobiology is going to be an interdisciplinary approach. And now with our team, we are going not just from the econeurobiology, we are going to the level what we call econeurorehabilitation. And I'm so happy with our teams, with Rania and Shir and Coral and other. We are developing with Leon from Harvard Medical School. Different program are leading this aspect, and what we call developing the concept that we start to develop that in different way. And I think all of that are very important for what we call the future of the new generation. And I would like to thank all of you for this opportunity to talk to you. I tried to make things very easier, to go back what people used to live 2,000 years ago, to keep believing the nature, having the love and forgiveness, the major important pillars for building the community, eat right thing, go far away from McDonald's and cheeseburger, be close to vegetables, sleep well, have dance, and yes, like my mom, drink some wine, which is very important for the brain, and keep move and challenge your thought. I'm very sure that your children, yourself, you build your cognitive capacity and have a sustainable and development community. And this is now the time I will be very happy to open that for discussion. If you have any question, I'll be more than happy to answer that.
This is a great talk. Thank you so much. It's like we sort of know these things are good for us, but it's great to see some data to actually support it from the biological perspective. So it was lovely. We did have one question earlier about the relationship of exercise. Was very interesting to see that, you know, excessive exercise is not necessarily a good idea prior to trying to engage with learning. And we're wondering about like student athletes. We have a lot of student athletes on campus, and what would the potential impacts be just being an athlete, which is a big part of their lives, like modifications maybe to schedules or things like that. Did you have any thoughts?
Yeah. I think it's very good question. You see, we were very shocked with Calixto Machado from Cuba when we measured. Well, athletics is so important for our circulation system to decrease the blood pressure. I don't recommend to take a science class or math class after a baseball. I mean, it will not work. It will not help them. It will not impact negatively. But we don't know that why. The next research we're going to do, we're going to study with Rania and Shir and our team, the PDNF growth factor, what happened to the PDNF in different situations, and have more studied the electrophysiology of the brain to be aware and to recommend to the school. Maybe these classes need to be in the end of the day, not in the middle of the day. Would the question come from the teacher? They have a science class after a baseball time. I mean, all the kids did not pass the exam. And she said, I'm a good teacher. What happened with me, Dr. Mualem? Help me. I think simply she teach in the bad hour. It's not the right time. So athletics is so important for the muscles, for the all physiology, but for focusing and cognitive, you need just 10 minutes and then doing your homework and exercise and homework and have exam. And it seems to be athletics is good for all the physiological system. I will not make baseball, will not recommend to do to biting or hiking or baseball or basketball and then do SAT in the state. They will not succeed. That was pretty sure. 10 minutes before that, it can has a significant impact. It switch on the brain. It's increased rapidly the BDNF. So more plasticity in the brain and the more outcome in academic achievement.
Hello. Hi. I just had a quick question. Dr. Feuerstein in Israel, he's passed as of 2014, but he had really great cognitive tasks for kids who were born with Down syndrome and other disabilities. Do you think, I mean, what do you think of his work in light of what you've been telling us?
Yeah, you see, I think today most of the science agree about a basic concept. It's called brain plasticity. It seemed to be when we stimulate different area in the brain with anyone, with ADHD, with autism, and we publish a lot about that, the brain will succeed to fix himself. So we need to use the strategy of brain plasticity. That's why I mentioned it's not which area in the brain. It's more about how many connection, how many networking. It's like Facebook. We need to create more and more network in the brain. So now with the echo neurorehabilitation, where we read with Rania and Shir and our team, we go into targeting, and many research will come very soon in the journal. And it's really, we found it's amazing that we can make a recovery. We can really improve the academic achievement as well as the mental health, as well as the top down, the prefrontal cortex controlling the emotional brain. And it seemed to be the answer is yes. See, I have many question and many facts in the ground. People with autism, they changed their life when they made a lot of this therapy, movement therapy, play therapy, nature therapy, biofeedback, neurofeedback, music therapy, religious therapy. So all of that really can change, and movement therapy. So all of that, and most of that also the food, the nutrition therapy is so critical. You know, more and more article today for the people with the Alzheimer, they related to the microbe in our digestive system. So we need to be aware what we eat. And we need to be aware that we need to move with this new media. We need to walk, not to move with our fingers. And we need to stimulate the brain, not keep watching the same TV. So I think the more diverse, the more stimulation, I think all the kids, we need to offer for them the basic principle of the foundation for the brain architectures: art, music, movement, nutrition, and because it's like a house. When you build a strong foundation, and music much more important than other, we need each kid to have them the opportunity to have music, to have art, to have a movement activity, and not just science and math and language. Sometimes it's make fixation in the brain. And sometimes I'm writing now a serious document for the trying to change the International Convention of the Human Rights and changing the concept. I'm talking about, since I have the background in law, I called it a neuro law approach. Is not the right for education, is the right for a right education. So it's so different. So the question is, do we are engaged with the family? Is the family has the skills and the knowledge how to raise the kids? Do we have the school where we really give the opportunity for all the kids to implement their extra potential, cognitive potential? So all these questions we need to deal with locally and internationally, because the right is education is very important. But the question, which kind of education? Now, I, as a physiologist, come from the physiology aspect. There are two phenomena in our animal life we can see. The one, we called it the imprinting brain, which, you know, we can control the brain of the human being. We can imprint. It's like to teach him how to think. I'm very concerned about that. All the extreme would see that with the religion, use this strategy to imprint the brain. And the other pathway, and I'm talking about the extreme, they use that politically to imprint the brain. So they easy to control them. They keep fear them. They keep challenge them. They put them in a fear situation. So their emotional brain very activated. So they have put them up and they have a really problem of critical thinking. While the other way is the Gardner way, which the multiple intelligent, to stimulate the brain, to show them many different ways, so we can teach them how to think, how to fish. We'll not give them the fish. We don't teach them what to think. This is all you guys know that about today, you guys in the state, in your election, and good luck for you. So we have that here as well. So this is all about what is the role of education, is helping the kids, provide them the tools, improve their skills, is how to think and not what to think. It's not easy. That's why we need international. That's why we need Margaret to cooperate together and to apply to the USAID to make a difference. And I believe that just together we can make it different, and we will make that a difference.
I look forward to doing that. Let's work together.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, we have to let people go. This was a fascinating talk. It was really well, I mean, very thorough, but it was wonderful to see all of the pieces coming together. I really enjoyed it. Do we have any last questions, or are we going to say goodbye? Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Mualem. I will be in touch, and we hope to connect further on these topics. So this will be recorded. This is recorded, so anybody who you know who would be interested in the topic can have access to it. If you send me an email, I'll send you a link.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. Thank you, everybody. And we
Thank
keep
you.
in contact. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.